Colorado had Jordan Seaton all but locked up, and then early signing day happened. Who knows what happened after that?
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Joining me for this segment is the one, the only John Garcia Jr., Rivals recruiting analyst, former co-host of Locked On Buffs. John, how you doing? It's been a minute.
Doing well. Obviously, hell of a time of year.
It is. It's the best time of the year. Christmas time is here. Flipmas is here. Get your shopping done. Get everything done because it's getting stressful out here. It's getting stressful for one Mr. Deion Sanders in Colorado because they landed who I kept saying was the cornerstone of arguably the program. If he comes into Colorado and lives up to the hype, he's a five-star offensive tackle, someone who could come in and play right away. But he did not put pen to paper. And there was a crystal ball projection put in by a Maryland recruiting insider that has him slated to end up at Maryland now. And so this has kind of caused a little uproar in the recruiting community. He didn't sign with anyone, which I said on yesterday's episode was probably best case scenario based on what was happening. But he did go on a live stream with Hayes Fawcett, I believe is how you say it, from On3. And he had a couple interesting statements that he made. He said Dylan Raiola from Nebraska was hitting him up. And then this is a quote from him. He says, "Nowadays in sports, you want to maximize your platform," end quote. And then he says, "It's crazy how you can commit to a school and people want you more," end quote again. So is he playing the game? Is he indecisive? What's going on with Jordan Seaton over there in your neck of the woods?
I'd say a bit of both. I do understand how when he, first of all, let's go back to the commitment, right? He had a top 5 or 6 going into decision day. I believe it was December 7th. So 2 weeks ago today, the Buffs logo was not on there.
Right.
So I think in terms of playing the game, this is something that Jordan has obviously dabbled in. And we started to get a hint about a day before because we heard he was in LA and he wasn't doing anything at IMG or even in his native Washington, D.C. So you're like, okay, something's up. Like, what is going on? And obviously he went on Undisputed and did the Fox thing, which is right in line with Coach Prime and Colorado. So very strategic in that regard. Now, going into that, all of those schools that did have logos in his top group, whether it was Maryland, Tennessee, South Carolina, Bama, Ohio State, Florida, all of them were very much pressing. So imagine this entire group of schools pressing every day when you know you're going to a school that's really not in that same group. So once he made the move, you can only imagine, we were surprised as media and onlookers, imagine those schools that had been in that communication. And for instance, we try to prepare as much as we can at Rivals. We shot 3 reaction videos for Jordan Seaton. I did one for Tennessee, Ohio State, and Alabama. I did not shoot one for Colorado. So there was a lot of surprise in that initial commitment. And I say all that to say it makes you double down. It pisses you off as a coaching staff. You've put in X amount of work for a 5-star number 1 tackle in the country, and he goes elsewhere. You're like, okay, I'm really going to stay after this kid. So you understood why everybody was still on him. I know Oregon was still trying to get him on campus for a visit. Dan Lanning did make an in-person visit to Jordan Seaton and his camp. Other schools were still trying to get him on campus. And even leading up to Wednesday, you saw the tweet heard around the world, right? He posts a meme about, basically this cartoon where the guy's panicking in terms of which option to pick. So that was really the first admittance of indecision from Seaton. So that's when you started to, hear more about Maryland, the hometown school, trying to make this a full circle recruitment. But we've also heard, Tennessee is right in the thick of this thing. And obviously Colorado is trying to get him signed on top of all of this. So you understand kind of both sides of the equation, why these adults want this kid to end the process, but you also understand why, the kid is like, well, I do technically have till Friday to make this decision. To my understanding, he is an early enrollee. So this does have to get done by Friday if he's going to sign a letter of intent. But here's the thing. There's nothing that makes you have to sign it, technically. If you're enrolling, I don't know, the first day Colorado kids would enroll, let's say January 8th, just for S&Gs, you could just enroll. The traditional signing day is for those who are going to sign, stick around, finish high school, and then a couple months later start school. It locks you in during that sort of dead zone. If you're an early enrollee, you kind of don't need to. So you wonder how much that has come into play. We only can assume what these NIL numbers look like around the number one blindside protector in these United States. So I'm saying all that to say you could only imagine what is in this kid's ear from coaches, from peers. We know others are recruiting him at the peer level, and those that don't have a label, managers and agents, and it becomes really wild in this day and age of NIL. So you can only imagine all of the factors contributing to why Jordan took a step back, at least for one day.
Yeah, and when people ask me what I do at this time of the year, I'm like, honestly, I'm analyzing memes and stuff like that, because that's what it comes down to, John. We're analyzing what does the deciding factor meme mean, because it was posted. I did a segment about it, and people were like, what? That has nothing to do with it. And lo and behold, here we are discussing that meme a couple days later. I need you to give me a confidence level grade, because there was one quote that stood out to me the most. And I know Colorado fans are clamoring for this quote to be said. This was when he was talking to Hayes Fawcett. He said, end quote, "I'm still a buff, kind of thinking and praying on it, just thinking and praying on it. Right now, I don't really have a step for step." If you're a Colorado fan and you hear that, what is your confidence level from 1 being the least to 5 being the most? Because he says he's still a buff, but obviously pen was not put to paper, which he said is kind of a formality, but it's kind of a, like, the days he wastes by not putting pen to paper is the more time other schools can come in. So what is your confidence level?
Yeah, as long as he doesn't sign, everybody's fair game, at least from a communication standpoint. We are in a dead period in person, but obviously FaceTime and all that stuff to kind of minimizes some of that. Well, I will say this. Obviously, you'd rather him be a current commitment, which he is by all indication, versus let me decommit and really kind of start over and try to dive into this all at once. Because I do still think you approach this, at least from an analyst perspective, as it's Colorado versus the field. I don't really view, Colorado, Maryland together and then everyone else. I do still think it's the field. Now, Maryland, I think Tennessee is kind of the sneaky program here in the mix. But yeah, if he's still committed, I do think that's great news for the Buffs, because he could have easily backed off of everything. And look, on the flip side of signing day, when you're a commit, yesterday was flooded with recruits who either decommitted right before signing day and signed elsewhere, or they stuck on signing day despite late pushes, and including 5-stars. Jeremiah Smith, number one player in the country, stuck with Ohio State despite all of the same feels.
Did he sign the paper? Did he sign the paper? That's the.
He did sign the paper. It came in about 15 hours ago, but it did come in. Edric Houston was a popular flip projection to Alabama. He sticks with Ohio State. DJ Lagway sticks with Florida over USC and so many others. So this part of it is normal. I just think it maybe surprised Jordan in terms of the volume of the programs that were still involved and still willing basically to deal with him, even though he is a Buff commitment and was so bold in that commitment. So I do still think the ball is very much in Colorado's court. But there's obviously a part of him or someone in his camp that says, hey, we need to at least hear all the final pitches maybe one more time.
Yeah, and the thing about recruiting that a lot of people don't realize is it's kind of like that sleazy dude you go to school with who says she doesn't have a ring on it, so it doesn't count. So recruiting is kind of like that. Until he's officially a Buff, people are going to come for him. And I think it's one of those things, if you're a Colorado fan, like I said yesterday, the last thing you wanted was for him to sign with someone, obviously, yesterday. You would have loved for him to sign with Colorado, but he didn't sign, so that means there's still an opportunity to kind of figure out what they need to do to get him on campus. There's a lot of exterior factors, I guess you could say, in the modern era of recruiting, as we saw in a few of the names that you mentioned. Before we move on and before you depart the show, John, let's talk about Colorado's class as a whole. Obviously, Jordan Seaton, we'll kind of pencil him in. He's not in Penn, though. Let's talk about the guys who are in Penn. It was only 5 people. We talked about it before the show. You said it was a really good class. It's just small. One, talk about some of the things that stand out. And two, is this sustainable for Deion Sanders in Colorado moving forward?
I'm sure that question has been very popular on your show for the entire cycle. But yeah, it's a good group. The pound for pound, this is as strong a group as there is in the country. The issue is that it's 5 guys.
Yeah.
We know the portal is separate. And look, the portal will be, we would probably assume the portal is going to be more important overall, maybe forever with Prime, certainly in Boulder, certainly this first, full cycle. But there are some star power players in this group. I love Cameron Michael. I was contacted by another coaching staff after he signed. That was maybe expecting him not to sign. So that was a bigger victory than maybe it seemed. And that was one of the first signees of the morning on Wednesday. He can do everything. He could be a legitimate blue chip running back, receiver, or secondary player. So if he's going to be Dylan Edwards 2.0, that would be great. If he's going to patrol the secondary and help that group, that'd be great. And we know, they can use all the receivers they can get in this wide open offense. So no matter what, I think Michael is going to make an impact very early in 2024. Draylon Miller, big physical receiver, kind of one of the body types that we don't really see on that Colorado roster right now. Just that big physical possession receiver. He'll be among the most physically impressive the moment he gets to campus at 6'2", right around 200 pounds. Brandon Davis Swain, an alpha out of the Detroit area, top 100 recruit from the state of Michigan, who is a game wrecker. He was an Ohio State, Michigan kind of kid, and obviously decided to do something against the grain. So I think he's going to be a great edge prospect who maybe bulks up and moves inside as he gets a little bit older, but he's probably about 250 right now, so he can rush from the outside going in, at least earlier in his career. Michael Welch, steady running back, well-built, compact from the state of Georgia. We know the running game is necessary just to keep defenses balanced, and you need sort of a churner. You need a guy who can complement a Dylan Edwards, a guy who's going to be in between the tackles. I think Welch can satisfy some of that. So this is a good group. Obviously, Jordan Seaton, best tackle in the country. If he signs, I think that would be important to add as well. So you got to look at this group with the portal guys. We know the portal has been heavy in the trenches, particularly on the offensive line, but there's some other positions that Colorado is certainly going after, and that's ongoing. So I think you just got to view it as a group together. And if that combination gets you over 20 guys, it starts to feel very normal. We used to operate in this business as, hey, it's 25 guys per cycle, and you go from there. And most of them were, of course, from the high school group. So you just got to sort of reinvent the wheel in that regard, especially with Colorado and the turnover we've seen over the last year or so.
Appreciate it. Okay, one final question, because this has been the question that people keep asking me is, when it comes to the portal, obviously Colorado's using a lot. Is this kind of Deion Sanders' MO, or does this show that he's not bought into Colorado for the long term? Because I feel like that's a lot of the questions I've been getting. And so is that something that recruits have concerns over?
I think it's going to be case by case. He's going to be the type of coach that you love him or hate him in terms of the style. Colorado's not going to be for everybody, whether it's the portal or the high school level. And if you have those type of, let's be honest, any worry about him not being there right now is pretty understated. It's pretty skeptical. It's assumptive even. There's really nothing tangible that says, hey, this guy's not going to be the coach next year or even the year after that. I know when his kids depart, we'll see after that, but we're not there yet. So I do think that he's saying all the right things. I know he was on a podcast recently talking about his love for Boulder against the NFL and how he wants to stay in college in particular, and how everything he wants is there right now. So I think for any program, that's about as good as you could hope for, because just like roster management has taught us this thing is a year-to-year deal, I think even in the coaching realm, you've got to view it as a year-to-year deal. Your Nick Sabans, your well-tenured Kirk Ferentzes of the world, I think those are going to become fewer and further in between with this next wave of college football, because there is so much turnover. There is so much roster management and CEOing that you have to do. So it's just not the same game. So I think you approach it every year as, hey, this is our coach this year. We're going into it, and let's see what happens. So I don't think that prime status is the reason why these numbers are so low at the high school level. I do still lean towards the by design element of it. I think this is more of what they want: attack the portal and elite high school guys to complement the portal guys. And remember, it's December 21st, and there's a long way to go with the rest of the cycle. There are some big names still remaining at the high school level, and obviously some big names remaining at the portal level. So combining those two, I think, is the way to go.
I appreciate you for hopping on. Everybody make sure to go follow John. He's got everything covered, all things recruiting. He's probably writing about your favorite team if you're not a Colorado fan, so go check him out. He's got the state of Florida locked down and everywhere else. John, appreciate you for hopping on. Good time. I will see you later. We'll reconvene another time.
Sounds good, brother. Appreciate it.
Have a good one. Yep. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, what makes it the best place to hire. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Let's talk about it. Jordan Seaton. He's a future star for sure. He's also someone that Colorado doesn't have in their class at the moment. So I wanted to talk about those guys, give those guys some shine. For the players that maybe we're overlooking because of the Jordan Seaton news, or maybe the Jordan Seaton news cycle, because like John said, Colorado did get quite a few good players. And so I'm going to go through the guys that stand out to me. Obviously, John previewed all 5 of them, so I'm not going to repeat everything he said, but the one that stands out the most to me right now, looking at this class, has to be Cameron McKell. Like John said, versatile guy, could play just about anywhere. And I think Colorado could use a lot of those guys. I think the one thing that Deion Sanders has preached while he's been at Colorado is, if you could play multiple positions, you will play multiple positions. And I think that's awesome. And I think that's something that stands out to a guy like Cameron McKell. And I think that's someone who really, or something that really appeals to a lot of guys, because if you guys know football, and really any sport and in anything, I played baseball, everybody thinks they could do someone else's job. So everyone who wasn't a pitcher in baseball was like, yeah, I could pitch. Everyone in football thinks they could play another position. And for Cameron McKell, he could actually play wherever, and he has a really good chance of doing so. So that's the one recruit that I think will stand out right away, because obviously Colorado's pretty beefed up at the wide receiver position. They got Will Shepherd. They have Jimmy Horn coming back. They have Travis Hunter. They have Tavares Dawson. They have guys who are coming back and will have big roles. And so I don't want to say that Draylon Miller won't have an impact, or Marion Miller is another guy who's going to be a good player for Colorado. But I think Cameron McKell is just so versatile that they might have packages for him. They might invent certain plays just to get Cameron McKell on the field. And then when I look at the transfer portal class, this class is a lot better, I would say, than last year's class. Like I said, Will Shepherd is the one that stands out to me. I would say he's probably my favorite addition as a skill position guys. He's got SEC experience, big body guy that could go up and catch it with just about anybody. I say he turns 50-50 balls into 70-30 balls. And if you're Shedeur Sanders, you got to love that, because sometimes you just want to throw it up and take a chance. And more likely than not, Will Shepherd is going to come down with it. So it's one of those things where you're excited about Will Shepherd. And then I look at this offensive line unit. Obviously, offensive linemen, the big boys up front, they don't get the love that they deserve, right? We all know it's true. No one's really watching these offensive line highlights. No one's tuning in to watch a left tackle block. But I'm looking at a guy, Tyler Johnson. I am well aware of Tyler Johnson. Started his career at Texas, where he had no impact. He was a 4-star guy, where it was like, when is it going to come together for Tyler Johnson? It never came together at Texas, but it did at Houston. He came into his own, and I'm excited to see what he does. I feel like he could kind of be the leader of this offensive line moving forward. And then also, I wanted to give a shout out or props to the latest addition, Samuel Okunololo. Olola, I believe is how you say it. I don't know. The Pitt transfer, plays defense line, pass rusher, had 5 sacks last season, 6'4", 245. What Colorado was missing were guys that could get to the quarterback and consistently pressure the quarterback and help them stop the run. They lost Jordan Dominic, who is probably the best at doing those things. And then they also lost Derek McClendon, who didn't really live up to the hype, I would say. And I would say, I'm going to call him Samuel O, just out of the fear of butchering his name so much. I think Samuel O could do both of those things, all 3 of those things, and kind of be that guy for Colorado on the defense line. This defense line was a weakness. Had it not been for the offense line being so terrible, I would say that the defense line was probably equally as ineffective at times. And so they are bringing in guys who are going to help this Colorado team get better in the future. And I think that's what they need. I think that's what they've been missing is physicality on both sides of the trenches. We saw it in the doc, which I'm going to review on tomorrow's episode, so you won't want to miss that, the newest episode, because I missed last night's. But Colorado was weak in the trenches. You could tell in the first couple episodes, it was like, okay, we brought in Bishop Thomas from Florida State. This guy is going to be a key contributor. And I think he had like 6 tackles on the year, and he just didn't have the impact. I would say he had more of an impact as a fullback than he did as a defensive tackle. So those are the guys that I think will be future stars. To recap, Draylon Miller, future star, Cameron McKell, future star. And I think both of those guys could play right away. Samuel O, I think he's going to start right away for Colorado. He's going to come in, provide that pressure off the edge for the Buffs. He's their highest rated transfer, as is right now. Him and Quincy Wiggins are both rated as a 92 transfer, according to 24/7 Sports. I think Tyler Johnson's a name to look out for. Also, with Sean Lewis no longer in the picture, Colorado's going to be using tight ends a little more. And they did bring in a tight end by the name of Chamon Monteir, I believe is how you say it. Probably butchering the heck out of that too. I'm really bad with names. I apologize. But he's a tight end who came from Cincinnati, had quite the impact over there for the Bearcats. And I'm excited to see what he does with better quarterback play and a more pass catcher friendly offense. So Colorado has a lot of stars in their class. They have a lot of people to be excited about. It's just one of those things where they didn't get a traditionally sized class, as John said. They just did it in their own way, which Coach Prime has been known to do. And I think he's going to continue to do those things. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then obviously you got to make adjustments. But so far, I guess you could say it worked skill position wise last year. Trenches wise did not work, which is why he really put a focus on the trenches this portal. So I think if it doesn't work again next year, then we kind of have to be like, okay, what's the adjustment? Because we can't just keep playing this portal game and hoping that it works every odd year, because every year there's going to be different guys, different caliber players in the portal. So when we come back, Coach Prime he confirmed that Warren Sapp will be joining the staff. And I'm going to talk about Warren Sapp's possible potential as a coach. But first, a word from our sponsors over at FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. They got spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow. Give me 5 stars, Spotify, Apple. We're really picking up steam. I appreciate all of the support that you guys have given me. But now it is Warren Sapp time. Coach Prime has been talking about this for I don't even know how long. I think he's been talking about it for, I would say, half a year or so, maybe even almost a year, where Warren Sapp is someone who he says will be on his staff. But the thing from preventing him from doing so was the fact that he didn't have a college degree. And he just finished that this past weekend, I think it was. I saw a picture of him, little cap and gown diploma. Imagine being like a 22-year-old kid and it's like, cool, I just graduated. I'm going to move out from my parents' house. It's going to be so sick. And then like sitting next to you at your graduation ceremony is Warren Sapp. And you're like, do I know you from somewhere? And he's like, yeah, I played in the NFL a little bit. It was this whole thing. Warren Sapp. Here's the guy, Warren Sapp, though. He graduated. Coach Prime made an appearance on the Rich Eisen show yesterday on early signing day and talked about Warren Sapp and said to see him get his diploma, because I know that's what he wants to do. He wants to coach on the staff and he wants to be a part of the staff, and he's going to be a part of the staff. I don't know what his role is going to be, though, because obviously they got Sal Sunseri coaching defensive linemen, and then Coach Prime promoted Vincent Dancy to coach the defensive end. So I'm not sure what his role would be. And Coach Prime kind of addressed that as well. Just being Warren Sapp is so knowledgeable and brings so much to the game that he's going to help out offensive linemen by saying, hey, this is what a defense lineman is going to try to do here. Don't let it happen to you. So this is what he said about his possible role. Even the offensive linemen, they glean from him too, because he's so thought-provoking that he could tell them, don't let the defensive lineman get you at that point or at this point or at this point. I mean, he's that wealth of knowledge, and he's hilarious. So it seems like Warren Sapp is, I don't know if there's an actual position name, but it seems like there's just an overall mentorship role in his future for Colorado, whether he's an analyst, which analysts can kind of coach during the week, but they can't coach during the week or during the game. Excuse me. That makes no sense. Why did I say that? The brain, sometimes the human brain. But it seems like Warren Sapp's going to be there in some sort of mentorship role, whether he's helping out the defense lineman, maybe he's helping out recruiting. Either way, Warren Sapp, I think the overall thought of him being on the staff helps out. I'm kind of glad, for the sake of the development of the team, that Coach Prime didn't just thrust him into like the defensive ends room and be like, okay, run this room, because he doesn't have coaching experience. I think for how, regardless of him being a Hall of Famer, regardless of him being one of the greats, having coaching experience and being a player who was one of the best is a different thing. It's a different animal. I think a lot of people hear me when I say that. They're like, Warren Sapp knows way more than anyone. He probably should, but we've seen it time and time again where Hall of Fame players don't always have success coaching players, because obviously it was easier for them. Sometimes putting things into words isn't always the easiest as well. So Warren Sapp officially becoming, or will become, a member of Colorado staff, and I think he has a great field of knowledge to benefit. He has a great, I think he's a great mentor, great person to learn from for this Colorado team. So look out for the Buffs as they continue to grow. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs. We went live the past 2 days. We will be back to your normal scheduled 11:30 Pacific time episode tomorrow. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, give me 5 stars on Spotify and Apple. I appreciate all the support, and I will see you guys tomorrow.